All right, I just watched the debate between former President Donald Trump and current President Joe Biden of the United States. Obviously, you don't need me to tell you anything. You probably have your own political views. I'm not going to tell you what your political views should be, but there are some things that are relevant, I think, both to the world and then also to Bitcoin. So, the obvious thing, no matter your political leanings, is that it was a complete disaster for Joe Biden. Um, it was amazing in real time to see his election odds plummet. Um, it's pretty clear that his election odds have completely fallen. So it looks like the election is now between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. That's the reality. I think by the time election comes around, pretty much anyone voting for Joe Biden is going to be knowingly voting for Kamala Harris. So really, it seems like this debate has turned it into Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris. Obviously, there's a lot of questions now of if Joe Biden is going to be replaced. Um, I think the much bigger question for me personally, the one that I actually care about, I actually care a lot less about, all the what he said, she said, all that. I'm actually more curious about what this does internationally because it's been clear for a while, but now it's especially clear that we don't really know who's president. We don't really know who's making the decisions. Um, and it's my hope that the next 6 months, 12 months or so, both internally within the United States and then externally for the whole world, that we could reduce the probability of chaos as much as possible. To me, that's my largest concern. Obviously, we have the war in the Middle East, we have the war in Eastern Europe, um, and so I hope that we have a peaceful transition, and I'm not necessarily sure if we will. I hope we do. I'm an optimist. At the end of the day, though, the important thing to understand is that Bitcoin is a political movement. Bitcoin is a political system. A lot of people would tell you Bitcoin is not a political system. Bitcoin's an apolitical system. And that's true. Bitcoin is an apolitical system. However, the fact that it's apolitical is a political stance, right? Being an anarchist, if you're an anarchist, even that is a stance, right? You can be an atheist, and that is still a stance, right? And likewise, Bitcoin is apolitical, right? It is against humans and politics, and that is still a political worldview, right? What is the code of Bitcoin's algorithm? It is the constitution of the decentralized digital nation, quote unquote, of Bitcoin. The people that are in Bitcoin are Bitcoiners, right? These are people that voluntarily joined the quote unquote nation of Bitcoin, right? And who really won the debate? I don't think Donald Trump really won the debate. I think more than anything, Joe Biden lost that debate. I think that's pretty clear. But who won the debate? I think Bitcoin won the debate. And I think most people aren't aware that Bitcoin won the debate because Bitcoin was not on the stage, because Bitcoin does not have a candidate on its behalf going out there and speaking, right? Maybe besides me and you and the other 10,000 other people out there online talking about Bitcoin. But the point is that I think more than anything, really, really Trump didn't win. I think more than anything, Americans probably in the next few days and weeks are going to really think about how much they've been lied to. Fact of the matter is that they've been lied to for years. Um, all the media has claimed that Joe Biden's healthy, Joe Biden's fit, everything's fine. That is pretty clearly a lie. And I know that for many people, that is not a surprise, but I think to the average person, average American that maybe, is a swing voter or not that interested, I think this debate might have been a wake-up call for them. That, wow, oh, wow, Joe Biden was sleepy. Okay, whatever. Oh, wait, who's actually in charge, right? And so I hope that people, instead of rallying behind blue or red, will instead rally behind the idea, the political idea, that no human being is moral enough or strong enough to consistently determine monetary policy indefinitely forever for the rest of time. Because really, that's what we saw between the debate, right? I joked on Twitter that the debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden is more like the core devs of the world's largest proof of stake token system, because that's really what it is, right? We have Jerome Powell, who issues and creates the monetary system of the U.S. cryptocurrency. We call it the U.S. dollar. And really, this debate, this whole election between Joe Biden and Donald Trump is an election of who gets to enforce the rules at which the Treasury, Yellen, and the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, enact, right? That's really what the whole debate is over. It's about who gets to be control of the money printer next, right? And so my hope is that this upcoming election cycle, this November, myself, all of you watching, both for ourselves and then also for everyone else, in a potential time of crisis, because we maybe could be looking at a time of crisis, even if not in the tangible world, in people's minds, they might be having a political identity crisis. I hope that we can bring Bitcoin to them as, hey, this is a political system where you don't have to trust any human beings. You don't like Donald Trump because you don't like his moral character, whatever. Okay, fine. Bitcoin is a political system where you don't have to worry about the moral character of Satoshi Nakamoto or of anyone in Bitcoin, right? Okay, you don't like Joe Biden because you think he's asleep at the wheel? Well, you don't have to worry about that with Bitcoin because Bitcoin doesn't sleep, because Bitcoin is code, Bitcoin is math, Bitcoin is prime numbers, Bitcoin lives on, okay? Bitcoin's not going to, Bitcoin's not going to die like a human being, like the current president, like myself, like Donald Trump or anyone else, right? And so my point in making this video is not to say you should vote for Donald Trump because Joe Biden's asleep. I mean, I think it's pretty clear Joe Biden's asleep. The point of me making this video is not to say vote for this person or for that person. The point of this video is to say that you have an opportunity. A lot of people, perhaps in your life, are going to really realize in the next 6 days, maybe 6 hours, and 6 months that, hey, this whole political idea of having humans in charge works at times for a few decades or a century or two, but then it eventually stops working just because of human nature and human incentive structures, right? And to emphasize that point a bit, Donald Trump, the first debate stage he was on, this was all the way back in 2016, right? The national debt then of the United States of America was $20 trillion. Now we're looking at $34 trillion. Okay, Donald Trump is a relatively new phenomenon in American politics, and the national debt of the United States of America has gone from 20 trillion to 34 trillion. Okay, that is a huge percentage gain, all right? Okay, what is it? That is about 75% increase in national debt. And this short in these short now 3 election cycles of Donald Trump, we've had an over 75% increase in the national debt of the United States. Okay, so hopefully, in people's point of pain, with frustration and angst of not knowing who to vote for because they don't feel like they have a good option, hopefully you can be cheerful and constructive and say, hey, there's this other political system, not red, not blue, but orange, and the whole idea of it is that there's no humans in charge, right? So that's the point of me making this video. Joe Biden clearly lost. Donald Trump clearly did fine, and within the context of the debate, he won. But I think the real winner was Bitcoin. And I think this is your opportunity to not go out there on Facebook or to your loved ones and shout at them, oh, how could you vote for this person? You want this, blah, blah, blah. Instead, be happy, be cheerful, acknowledge the reality that we might be in a chaotic period as, perhaps we're going to have a new Democratic candidate rush through, as well as now the very real question of who's actually in charge and who has been in charge. But hopefully it is a tool, and it is a tool to help people understand that political systems without human beings are inherently more stable. It is the main criticism of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is too volatile, Bitcoin is too unstable, Bitcoin is too unreliable. How can I trust Bitcoin? Reality is that it might seem volatile to us because it's young and because it's volatile in price, but in terms of monetary policy, in terms of its governance schedule, in terms of its validators, and in all of these aspects, it's the most stable. And I'm not rooting for chaos. I'm not rooting for anarchy. I'm not rooting for people to lose trust in the system for the sake of losing trust in the system. I'm just saying the reality that we might be looking at a lot of trust lost this upcoming November. And I think we've all kind of known that's true. I think we've all kind of joked that's true. But I think more than anything, the rate at which people reacted to this debate, I think, really kind of puts it in context of how quickly trust could be lost. I mean, in a matter of minutes, the Democrats in the Democratic Party went from supporting Biden gun ho to all of a sudden just complete flip of the switch, right? And unfortunately, it's probably going to be the same thing with Bitcoin. People will ignore it until all of a sudden is sudden. And so the best thing we can hope for is to be cheerful, constructive, be kind to people, welcome people, not shame them for disagreements, and ultimately help them understand that a political system that is not run by humans is more stable and does not require an endless amount of currency unit creation. And for context, going from $20 trillion national debt to $34 trillion in national debt over the course of 3 election cycles, that's $14 trillion added, right? That is $700,000 per Bitcoin. Just that money creation. And oh, yeah, by the way, that's just the last 3 election cycles. If we want to look at the next 3 election cycles, if we would have another 75% increase in here, we're looking at $50 or so trillion. Okay, that, now we're talking multiple millions of dollars of new currency and new debt per Bitcoin. Okay, and that's not including unfunded liabilities. Unfunded liabilities is hundreds of trillions of dollars. And I was very surprised how on the debate stage, both Biden and Trump mentioned Social Security and Medicare repeatedly. Okay, all of that debt, all those liabilities are before we have the reality of Social Security, Medicare, and many government programs becoming defunct, projected, late 2020s, early, mid, and late 2030s over the course of the next 15 years or so. There's a lot of real problems, and I think your takeaways, my personal takeaways, are those couple things. Number one, millions of dollars per Bitcoin is not unreasonable. We're creating so much debt. Number two is the importance of being consistent, cheerful, and constructive in the face of chaos of these politicians. And then the point number three is obviously Joe Biden's probability of being reelected just tanked. And the one final thing I'll say, whether you like or hate Donald Trump, reality is Kennedy and Trump both have been pandering to Bitcoin constituents and voters. That's the reality. And with Joe Biden's presidency continuing, now looking to be extremely dismal, you have to consider the possibility that within a year, we could be looking at the next president of the United States being a pro-Bitcoin policy president. Do I think Kennedy or Trump understand Bitcoin? No. I don't think they understand Bitcoin. I don't think they understand that Bitcoin's a Trojan horse for the US dollar and everything else. But do I think they have a possibility of understanding it over the course of the next 5 years? Yes, I do. And that's something you have to really think about, okay? Not only do I think Bitcoin won from the social narrative perspective of that people lost a lot of trust in the system tonight. We haven't even talked about the fact that CNN made this a corporate debate. That's a whole other topic I'm not going to get into. But not only did Bitcoin won from the social consensus perspective, I also think Bitcoin won from a candidacy perspective. If we have Kennedy or Trump in office within a year, whoever's going to be elected next is going to be in office in the late 2020s. And that's something you have to think about. What happens if we have a president in office in 5 years that by executive order or by some sort of other declaration of interest for national security wants to have a national hash force or wants to have the United States, either by printing legal tender dollars or by issuing bonds, smashed by Bitcoin at spot price? Okay, everything Michael Saylor does, everything you and I do, is dwarfed by an entity that can print energy out of thin air, political currency, and exchange it for Bitcoin. Okay, you and I have to exchange the incomes we earn for, we work for and earn for Bitcoin, and likewise, even Michael Saylor has to borrow new debt. Okay, he's limited. Okay, you're limited. I'm limited. The government is not limited in how much currency it can print into existence, especially if it's backing that currency with Bitcoin in the first place. So I suppose there's going to be a lot of takeaways from this debate. It's going to be really interesting to see how this unfolds in coming weeks, but ultimately, I suppose those are my encouragements. We went from 20 trillion to 34 trillion over the course of the last 3 elections. 2016 election, everyone said it couldn't get worse. Then 2020 happened, and everyone said it couldn't get worse. And now it seems like this one could possibly be worse than the one in 2020. And in those 3 elections, we've increased our national debt by a factor of 75%. If we were to do that again, we're looking at $50 to $60 trillion. That's many millions of dollars created per Bitcoin, right? Forget, again, prices set the margins, okay? If you have millions of dollars chasing every single Bitcoin when 80% of the Bitcoins are already off the market, okay, that's not millions of dollars in real price per Bitcoin. Okay, that's the thing I'm oversimplifying here, okay? You might think I'm a mega bull for saying, oh, we're creating millions of dollars in new debt per Bitcoin. It's like, no, those millions of dollars per Bitcoin are going to be chasing the tiny, tiny fraction that are left on market, that are left on stock, right? So those are my takeaways. Be kind to people. People are probably going to be scared. And that's sad because people don't realize there's another option. But people are going to probably be very, very afraid the next 6 months. And I hope and pray that both internally and externally, we don't have people capitalize on that chaos and fear. And hopefully we can redirect people more towards a happy and optimistic orange political system instead. So anyway, that's all I have to say about that. I am probably going to talk about the election more over the course of the latter half of this year. But again, it's all for the sake of in context of the best political system, which is the one without human beings. That's all I got. Thanks.